Catch Wrestling Alliance, where we help you elevate your grappling so that together we can keep real wrestling alive. Thank you very much for listening or watching, wherever you're listening or watching. We really appreciate it. Let's go ahead and go over the like all the announcements and stuff first before we get into the subject of today's podcast, which I think it can help a lot of people. And so I found this article that was just published a couple days ago. Actually, yeah, just yesterday. So I think there's a lot of stuff that you can kind of learn from that and like apply to your training to like dramatically, well, maybe not dramatic, well, actually, yeah, dramatically increase the longevity of your time doing the sports you love. So with that being said, I just want to let you know that our classes have started again at UCLA. So if you're a student or if you can um, join the gym there, it's called the John Wooden Center. There's different ways to get access to those classes, but if not, then you can always train with us at Fight Science MMA. You don't have to join the gym. There's just a drop-in fee, so feel free to check it out. We have class tonight at 8:30 p.m. at Fight Science MMA in Los Angeles. It's in the mid-city area of Los Angeles. So it's like right in the middle of everything. So you can always like find it, right? It's right near the major freeway, the 10 freeway. So also too, if you're really far away, so if you're on the East Coast, try to find my good buddy John Strickland from American Hook Wrestling out on the East Coast to train with. If not, you can always like learn from us online on our website, catchwrestlingalliance.com. And also, if you don't want to become a full-on student, but you want to support us, you can become a member at our YouTube channel through our membership site there. We have a lot of extra videos for you. So I think I've said most everything. Oh, also too, if you have something to teach, if you're like an expert on something or even not too much of an expert, you're never going to feel like you're a full expert on anything, right? Usually experts don't feel like experts, right? Like that's the whole Dunning-Kruger effect. But if you have something to teach, you can teach online. You can check out our link below for Kajabi. You get like a whole month of that website platform. It's really optimized for people who want to teach things online. You can check that out there. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get to today's subject. So basically what's happening is, we often make videos highlighting sumo techniques and stuff, and I personally enjoy watching professional sumo from Japan. I think it's a great sport. It's a fun sport. I've competed in it. I've competed in the USA Sumo Open a couple times. I've also competed in like the Sumo Open is actually different from like the main federation. So, but I've competed in all the two big, like the main federation and the Sumo Open stuff. So I enjoy the sport. I enjoy watching it. But with that being said, I have some concerns for the safety of the wrestlers. Like, I don't really like. I'm not talking about the sport itself. Like, I think with professional sports, there's like a possibility of like getting injured. So that's totally fine. So I'm not talking about that, right? Because that's the nature of combat sports. You can get injured. That's the nature of like any kind of sport, right? You can totally get injured. But I think I might have mentioned it on the podcast where it's like I think the platform itself, right, is should be wider. So you still keep the ring the same size, like the circle, but make the platform wider so people aren't falling like several feet once, like if they get thrown. I think wrestlers are facing kind of like unnecessary injuries and just like stuff that like they don't have to be injured for. So the reason I'm bringing this up, and there's many other things, but so in between tournaments in Japan, because sumo is actually surging in popularity right now, they do tours, right? So they have the wrestlers do kind of like these mini tournaments that don't really count for anything, don't count for ranking. So they do basically like kind of these exhibition tournaments all around Japan, so the fans can come out and see some of their favorite wrestlers and stuff. But what's happening is that like a higher number of wrestlers are dropping out due to injury and stuff. But this is not just like physical injury. There's other things going on. So there's an article that just came out from the Japan Times on October 9th by John Gunning. So it's in English, right? But let's kind of go over some of the points because it's not just the physical stuff. So like I kind of mentioned, like the platform should be wider. There should be more, I guess, like padding and stuff around the platform also. Like they probably shouldn't allow people to sit that close, even though it's like a traditional thing. Um, so with that being said, like there's more, right? I'll just read the first paragraph. It says hyperhidrosis, bronchitis, arthritis, osteoarthritis, pharyngitis. You might not need a medical degree to understand the stream of information flowing from the Japan Sumo Association, but having one certainly wouldn't hurt, right? So they're having a lot of pro sumo wrestlers dropping out of these tours, and there's many reasons. It's almost like they're pushing them too much, or pushing them like too much to perform on things that don't count, don't really matter for things like for ranking. um, and people are getting worn out, and so they're getting sick. So like all the other things, so a couple of other things I mentioned, like all these bronchitis and um, hyperhidrosis is weird. But anyway, like they're getting all these different problems. Sometimes hyperhidrosis could be a nervous problem too. Like maybe they're getting too worn out. The nervous system isn't regulating the sweat. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of potentially like they're just wearing these guys out, right? And they're not necessarily making the environment where they're competing safe. So I'm not saying anything about the sport itself. Like I like it the way it is. I like the slaps. I like sometimes you get a knockout and stuff. That is the sport, right? So if you have a sport just like catch wrestling, we have neck cranks and all that. So that is what's done. Oh, and the suplexing and all that. Like say like the Olympic freestyle has suplexing, and a lot of people were complaining that it should be banned. But just think, this is the sport, and this is the risk with the sport, and then the promoters have the responsibility to try to make the environment where the sport takes place as safe as possible for the athletes. So it seems like the Japan Sumo Association isn't doing these things. And so we'll go on, and I'll scroll down a little bit, and I'll read a paragraph here and there to kind of talk about like the kind of like the like just how many things are kind of going on in our beloved sport, right? So it says, um, so even with almost a quarter of the top tier wrestlers out of action and several of the sport's biggest stars doing little to no training during open practice sessions on the first week of the tour, attendance figures remain strong, right? With many of the stops on the trail, it's called the Jungyo the Jungyo Trail, seeing close to sold out arenas. It's a situation that puts the Japan Sumo Association in somewhat of a difficult spot, right? So they believe, yeah, well, it says like it would be foolish to not capitalize on the popularity. So yeah, they're going to be like people are going to be buying tickets. That's what they say, like butts in seats, right? So they know that people are going to be buying tickets, so they're going to have these promotional like mini tournaments for fans to see their favorite wrestlers. But um, they're concerned, at least because so many are out, right? So many are pulling out. Um, and then another thing would be like So the fact that the sumo's main attractions are out of action for extended periods or unable to put their abilities on full display is a major cause for concern, right? And then another thing they point out is recruitment remains an ongoing issue in Japan's national sport. And with a schedule so intense that injuries and illnesses are increasingly commonplace, it can be hard to convince potential wrestlers or their parents that joining professional sumo is the right move, because it's just like collegiate wrestling. We have like the well, Japan has like the high school level sumo, actually even children level sumo, high school, collegiate, and then potentially you can go into the professional sumo, and you can you can make tons of money, right? Like way more than someone who can make you know like in wrestling in the United States, right? Or even like jujitsu grappling, right? Like that was like a big issue earlier this year with the Craig Jones Invitational, where they're really just trying to raise awareness and raise wages basically for like prize money and stuff. So um, they're in Japan, they're seeing people all like, well, they're really just working these guys like all the time. So they're getting sick a lot. So just all kinds of sicknesses, right? And injuries, right? And so it says all these things are making it where it's like unattractive for youth to go into it. So they're just like, nah. But wait, there's more, right? So it says that's part of the wider and growing awareness of the health challenges faced by sumo wrestlers among not only the media, but also the general public and the sport's various governing bodies at amateur and professional levels. In terms of what can be done to improve conditions for wrestlers while maintaining the number of tour dates, there are some possible solutions. So they're thinking about maybe splitting up the wrestlers into two groups, and then they do shows. Um, but okay, so that's that. But I want to kind of get it so that later on in the article, they get into other things, right? So other things that are kind of being neglected, which I think you need to not neglect in your own life, right? So these are things that you can be taking care of. So, um, so let's get. I'm gonna scroll down a little bit. Okay, so any complaints about a particular tour date not having all the top stars can easily be countered with the fact that the current system leads to exactly the same result, only with more disappointments among fans, as the big names are not are as the big names are on the schedule and prominently featured. Um, but it says also far closer attention could be paid to diet and energy expenditure of each individual wrestler. Right. So it says from transportation to accommodation and food, they all come in a one size fits all model that is ill suited for such a large variance in body types and physical conditions. So it says uh, so then yeah, these people like the wrestlers, they can they're like say like they're not like some of the bigger ones, they might want to eat more, but if they go on tour, then they're not fed or they're all kind of probably fed the same amount, right? It's like rationed out, and everyone gets the same, but someone who eats more cannot get more, right? um and they give an example, right? So it says when the Ireland national rugby team visited Japan in 2017 to play a series of games and scout locations for the 2019 World Cup, it was accompanied by its own chefs and dietitians who controlled not only every bit of food that went into the athletes, but also dictated when and how they ate based off of their data. So they're talking about how like data trackers are commonplace in the uniforms of high-level soccer, football, and rugby players around the world, with consistent monitoring of a range of health metrics to ensure the ideal combination of nutrition, rest, and activity. So I don't know if you ever watch soccer, but nowadays it is kind of weird because like sometimes when the guy takes off his shirt, he's wearing it looks like a sports bra, but that sports bra or that kind of mini tank top has sensors in it and stuff. So they're monitoring like how much the guy's exerting and himself and whatnot. Um, so the author's kind of pointing out that there's a lot more care for the athletes in other sports, right? So what does this mean to you? It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be wearing a monitor, and of course, like in grappling, you can even like not wear a shirt or whatever, and wearing monitors and stuff might get in the way of your grappling or whatever. But you don't necessarily have to wear a monitor, but you have to know that um, like that you must like take care of yourself, right? And so what are some of the ways to take care of yourself? uh like seeing if, well, like say without monitors, then you have to go with what like scientists or researchers call like your perceived exertion, right? So if you are trying to train for a tournament or something, and you want to include like weight train, like you were just only doing spar or like your jiu-jitsu classes or your wrestling classes, and you want to introduce strength and conditioning, you can't just do it all at once because you'll probably overload your body and get injured or sick or whatever. So you kind of have to go with your perceived exertion. So if you're trying to add weightlifting or whatever to your strength and conditioning routine, uh, don't do everything all at once. Because say if you start feeling like one of the things, like if you start feeling like you just hate doing something, chances are it's like, kind of like your body kind of telling you it's like, I'm kind of getting worn out and a little too much. So a lot of times your perceived exertion will help guide you to uh, incrementally increase these different aspects of your training. So it's like, or even like if you want to say, yeah, if you're training for a tournament and you were only going to wrestling class say twice a week, but then all of a sudden you want to go 4 times a week, um, then you might be feeling worn out later, but you think like, oh, I got to do this for for several weeks up until the tournament. Well, chances are your body's not conditioned to do that level of exertion yet, right? So you kind of have to raise it up gradually. So without having sensors and on strapped to your chest like soccer players and rugby players and probably all these other athletes and all these other professional sports that are being monitored by all these professional dietitians and other kind of data scientists. You can do a lot even without equipment right at home. So uh, and what is the result of you kind of paying attention to your rate of perceived exertion? Chances are you're not going to wear yourself out where you can get sick, like an illness, like the professional sumo wrestlers. They're being worn out so much that they're getting all types of regular illnesses like colds and flus and stuff, right? And then on top of that, you can be so worn out that it makes you more susceptible to getting sports injuries, or like in the beginning of the article they talked about uh different types of arthritis, and some, I think one of the ones they mentioned was basically you reduce kind of like overuse, like you're always training, you're always doing the same thing, so then your joints you can think your joints get kind of worn out, so then they become inflamed. um so then you can't do your sport, you can't compete, and like in this case of professional sumo, this is how you make money, and if you can't make money, that's not good at all. So so it seems as though in Japan a lot of people are becoming more concerned about this, so which is great because instead of working these wrestlers so that they're injured, um I want to see them perform, I want to see them competing, right? Let me see. Oh, this is the other thing. Continuing on with the diet stuff. So in 2024, it's incongruous to see a professional sumo wrestler still wolfing down large meals that are high in sodium and processed sugar at all hours of the day and night. While the use of gyms and weight training has increased, when it's ad hoc with no scientific basis for what exercises are done, where, and when. Like sumo, of course, is a lifestyle and not merely a sport. But in time, when stables are embracing all kinds of additions to training, much closer monitoring of food intake and energy expenditure could easily become the norm with little effort required. So, outside of the ring, the Japan Sumo Association has shown willingness to embrace social media and modern marketing. The next step is to ensure the sport survives and thrives in the decades ahead. Um, there we go. So yeah, so there should be a thorough rethinking of athlete care and bringing sumo closer in line with nutrition and recovery practices around the globe. Yeah, so think about that for yourself, because like say a lot of times in grappling, we're not part of a huge we're not part of the Dodgers or whatever. Like the I live in LA, so we have like Dodgers, Lakers, and all these big time sports where they got all these trainers and people, like how the article mentioned, like all these data scientists tracking all the different things that they eat and their exertion. But you can do a lot on your own even these without sophisticated equipment. So pay attention to like how you're feeling, right? If you're overtraining, chances are you can get to where it's like you're doing four like say four jujitsu or four wrestling trainings a week, and then adding the strength and conditioning a couple days. You can do that, but you have to build up to it. And then also the other thing that was not mentioned, but you will see this in sumo wrestlers. They're actually very flexible, so I think that's one of the things that they probably do traditionally for self care, like stretching. But here in the United States, I think just like in Western countries, a lot of people don't like to stretch. So that's one of the things I want to kind of add for the listener or the viewer here. You got to make sure you're stretching, because that's a big thing that's neglected in our society here, at least in the United States. I believe it's probably similar in a lot of countries, like especially Western countries. No one wants to stretch, so you can easily get injured by not being flexible enough. So these different things that you can be doing to gradually increase your expenditure of energy in a safe way. And in a safe way, then that means you're not spending so much time injured. Then you're actually spending more time doing what you love, training, competing, um, making all those Instagram reels of your highlights and all that. So I think it's kind of like the main point for today, that like what can we learn from these sports, that like sumo. I think in Japan in general, there's a lot of emphasis put on like tradition and stuff. So I think that's kind of what's going on with sumo, where things have been done a certain way. They all eat that same sumo stew that the younger wrestlers make for the higher level, like the senior wrestlers. So it's like this cycle doesn't, since it's kind of it's like an older way of doing things. It didn't take into consideration a lot of the modern research that is improving performance and safety and health of athletes of other sports. So um, there's something to be said about like tradition, right? But uh, like you have to also take into consideration some of the research. So in the United States, we have this organization called the National Strength and Conditioning Association. They test out a lot of stuff. They kind of help with um, a lot of different athletes to learn how to like stay healthy in your sport. Ultimately, that's what it is. It's like, how are you going to stay healthy so that you can train and perform, right? So uh, you can't be neglecting all these different aspects, and of course also the mental aspect. That's all these things that combined to make you perform better. And also say like if you love the sport, then you want to be able to do it for a very, very long time. So you have to take these different things into consideration. So think about it. Hopefully, highlighting a different sport that's struggling with wrestlers getting all kinds of sickness, right? So all kinds of diagnoses, whether it be like colds, flus, bronchitis, all these different things, to different types of arthritis, different injuries, where they had to pull out of events. And it's unfortunate because like I see it a lot too, where it's like I like watching the pro tournaments, and then oftentimes you'll see like a lot of people a lot of the wrestlers that I like, they're like, oh, they pulled out due to whatever kind of injury. Um, so there's a lot of things I personally believe that sumo should improve on to so that we can like see so we can enjoy sumo, right? But if they're also seeing a lot of young people who love sumo like decide to not go into it, that's also a bad thing. So you want to take all these things into consideration in your own life, and hopefully this kind of helped you to uh, just think about your training. I did see actually one of my friends online posted that he went to like he's been trying to increase his strength and conditioning routine, but one day he just went to the gym and like even the weight he was usually doing felt like so difficult. So he's like, oh, I think I need to rest. So that can be like an example of your rate of perceived exertion. If you feel like, oh, this is like I'm lifting a weight that I like normally lift, like I'm like that should be maybe your warm-up set or whatever. And if it feels like the hardest thing, chances are you should stop, right? Chances are you've already kind of maxed out your body's like gas. You can think of it as like a gas tank, right? So you've already exhausted all that fuel. So for us humans, we got to rest. Right? So you got to sleep, make sure you're sleeping enough, all these different things. So hopefully we can learn from the struggles of professional sumo, and hopefully the Japanese Sumo Association can also learn from a lot of wrestlers getting injured and sick. So because I love watching it. So all right, let me know what you think. Also, too, if you want us to research or like not research, but like talk about different aspects and present some research about different aspects of, say, like health and whatnot, so that you can continue performing at your best or continue competing. Just let us know whatever you're interested in. Just comment down below, and but if you also want to train, come train with us, Fight Science MMA. If you have access to the UCLA gym, come train with us. Um, if you don't have access, you can always go online. We also have one-off courses, so you don't have to become a student. You can also join our YouTube channel, like just to support us. Kind of like a lot of people have like a Patreon or whatever. So if you want to kind of chip in something, if you appreciate what we're doing, you can do that through our YouTube channel. So we don't have a Patreon. We just have we just have everything. We just keep everything on YouTube because it's kind of easy, all in one place. But we do have all these extra videos if you become a member on our YouTube channel. So go ahead and check it out. And because we're always putting up videos for our members too. So, all right. So thank you very much for listening or watching. Then, we'll definitely be here. And our goal has always been to help you to elevate your grappling so that together we can keep real wrestling alive.